the first thing that struck me, I mean, it's true of Liverpool itself, is the warmth and friendliness, but especially so on this campus. I've been stopped time and time again by people who happen to be from Ireland, which is always a nice welcoming sound, but also people who are genuinely curious about what I do and who are willing to share about their own experiences. So yeah, it's a great day for me. I mean, I have to say, in London, or Paris, the two cities where I spend most of my time, you just wouldn't get the same level of engagement. And it's not a kind of intrusive curiosity. People are genuinely interested in you. And I don't think that can be faked. For the first time, my wife, who's French, has visited Liverpool, and she's just blown away by how friendly people are. I'll give you an example. We went in to get a cup of coffee this morning, and next to the hotel. And the guy immediately says, okay, what do you want for your coffee? Now, what's your plan for the day? What are you guys doing today? And she was at first taken aback, and then really saw the value of it, because we started talking about the university, and he said, oh, well done, great. And then about visiting various places in the city, like the Albert Dock. And she said, my God, this is the friendliest city I've ever been in. I feel very humbled, I sometimes ask myself, what did I do to deserve this? And it's a kind of recognition of what I tried to do, what I've tried to do in my work, which is to get to the heart of human stories. I mean, this university it's famous for many reasons, but one of the key things is it's ecumenical. It brings people together across the divides that I have seen destroy countries, destroy lives over the last nearly 40 years as a journalist. So that's a really important thing for me, to get a doctorate from a university like this. And it's also a hopeful moment, because you can't but walk through these grounds and meet the young people who are graduating today in the midst of a time of profound political uncertainty, great rising levels of intolerance, and you come across their hopefulness. We can hear just outside the windows that happy buzz of people who are setting out into a very uncertain world. But I hope that they do so with a degree of a sense of the possibility that still exists, despite all the hatred and the toxic misinformation that exists. I never saw myself as a great person for giving anyone advice, because I've made a fair few mistakes in my life. But if I'm asked to give advice to the graduates today from Hope, I would say never give up hope. And that means the legacy of the education you received here, but also your own capacity for believing the world can be made better, because it can. The thing that will stop it, that will lead us to potential disaster in the climate that we're living in now, is if younger people start to believe it's not worth engaging, it's not worth protesting, it's not worth organising. Get involved, be part of change, drive the change, because it'll be too late when you turn around and say, I wish we'd done something. I've been inspired by the example of one particular individual. I mean, a lot of people, but one particular person stands out. And he was the headmaster of my school in Cork, Brother Jerome Kelly, presentation order, who came back from the missions in the late 60s, early 70s. He'd been in the West Indies at the time of decolonisation. And he came back to our school full of ideas of social justice, and he imparted them to us. He taught us the meaning of caring for another individual. And the school I went to, was quite privileged. They used to say it had the cream of Cork, the rich and the thick. And he said that was not good enough, and sent us out into what were effectively, slum areas around the school, where elderly people were struggling to survive in dreadful accommodation. And he got us to raise money for them to build new housing. He shamed the local corporation into matching whatever we were, and sometimes doubling whatever we collected. and building those houses. And more importantly, I would say he, set up a whole roster of visits to people. So we would go and sit down with these elderly people in their flats where the mold was climbing the walls, where you could just feel that sense of damp and sense of abandonment, and got us to make friendships with people and got us to talk to them. And that was hugely valuable in terms of how I saw the world and in terms of the career that I would go on to follow. The value of education is to, first of all, inspire our curiosity about the world. And not a morbid or a kind of prurient curiosity, but one about people, about what makes them tick, about what makes, I'm a historian, what is it that leads people to do the things that they do? How might we better organise and manage international relationships between people? So that's one great value of it. And the other, of course, is knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Okay, not so you can get a job. It's important to be able to get a job. Not so that your school or your university statistics shine above all others, but for the love of knowledge. The thing that I've always loved is opening a book, feeding myself in that way. So and the value of education as well is to meet others, to share your time with other people who will become your friends, perhaps like-minded people, but also people with whom you disagree. It'll teach you the value of civilized disagreement, which is so essential in our world now. Knowledge is the route to seeing the world as it really is, not through the lens of ideology, not through the lens of prejudice. And the more people who study together in that kind of atmosphere, the kind of atmosphere you have here, this anti-sectarian atmosphere that you have here, I think the better the hope for us in building a future that isn't circumscribed by lies and prejudice.